The alien woman stood at the edge of the great assembly hall, her hands folded tightly in front of her. The floor beneath her feet was polished crystal, reflecting the lights of 1,000 worlds. Tall pillars rose toward a distant ceiling, carved with symbols of power, conquest, and ancient victories. This place was meant to inspire awe. For her, it only made the loneliness feel heavier. She was smaller than most of the beings gathered there. Her species was light-boned, with soft skin that shifted color under stress. Right now, faint lines of pale gray moved across her arms and neck, signs of quiet fear she had learned to hide. She kept her head high anyway. She had practiced this posture since childhood. Dignity was the only shield her people still had. Around her, delegates from powerful races talked loudly. Some wore armor even in this place of words. Others floated on anti-grav platforms or stood surrounded by guards. Their voices echoed, confident and careless. Every now and then a pair of eyes would glance at her and linger just long enough to sting. "That one is still here," a deep voice muttered nearby. "She never learns," another replied, followed by soft laughter. The alien woman heard them. She always did. Her hearing was sharp, another trait her species once valued before the galaxy decided they were weak. She did not turn toward the voices. Looking would only invite more attention. Her name was rarely spoken correctly in this hall, so she no longer bothered correcting anyone. She had come as a representative of her people, though many in the council refused to call her that. To them, she was a reminder of a failed race, a species that lost wars and worlds, a people who survived only because no one cared enough to finish them. She had waited for 3 cycles to be granted a chance to speak. 3 cycles of sleeping in a small rented chamber, eating simple food, and walking into this hall each day with hope she pretended was not fading. Each day her request was delayed. Each day she was told to wait. Today was different. Today she had been summoned forward. A signal light pulsed near the center platform. Her heart tightened. This was it. She stepped forward, her feet moving carefully across the wide floor. The murmurs grew louder as she walked. Why is she allowed here? This is a waste of council time. She represents nothing. Each word landed like a small blow, but she kept walking. She reached the marked position and stopped. Hundreds of eyes fixed on her. Some were curious. Most were amused. A few were openly hostile. "State your purpose," one of the High Council members said. His species towered above her, his voice amplified and cold. She inhaled slowly. "I come on behalf of my people," she began. Her voice was soft but clear. "Our outer settlements have been attacked repeatedly. We request recognition, protection under council law, and the right to rebuild without interference." For a moment there was silence. Then laughter spread through the chamber. "Protection?" someone mocked. "From what? From your own weakness." Another voice joined in. "Your species had protection once. You lost it. You lost everything." The council member did not stop them. He watched her as one might watch a small animal struggle. She felt heat rise in her chest, but she did not raise her voice. "We have followed every rule set by this council. We pay our dues. We avoid conflict. Still, we are hunted. We ask only to live." "Live?" the council member repeated. "You have lived long enough." The laughter grew louder. Some delegates leaned toward each other, whispering cruel jokes. Others openly pointed. Her skin patterns darkened despite her efforts. She clenched her hands to stop them from shaking. She thought of her homeworld, of the low hills and quiet waters. She thought of children learning history that ended in loss, of elders who still believed coming here mattered. She would not shame them by breaking now. "I will not leave," she said quietly. "I have the right to be heard." That only made it worse. Guards shifted closer. A few council members spoke over her, dismissing her words. One suggested that her species be relocated again, pushed farther from trade routes. Another asked why resources should be wasted on a people who contributed nothing. The alien woman stood alone at the center of it all. Her voice was drowned out. Her presence became a target. Then, from the outer rows, someone moved. At first, no one noticed. The human delegation was seated far from the center, still considered new and unimportant by many. Humans did not rule sectors. They did not dominate councils. They observed, learned, and waited. One human stood up. He was average in height by human standards, small compared to many others in the hall. He wore simple clothing, no armor, no symbols of rank beyond a small emblem on his chest. He was not scheduled to speak. No one had invited him forward. He walked toward the center without haste. A few heads turned. Some scoffed. What are the humans doing now? The alien woman did not see him at first. Her focus was on the council member who had just raised a hand to silence her again. Her throat felt tight. Words pressed against her chest with nowhere to go. Then she felt it, a warm presence beside her, a hand reaching for hers. She flinched in surprise and turned her head. The human stood next to her, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. His expression was calm, his eyes steady. He did not look at the council, he looked at her. Slowly, gently, he took her hand. The sensation was unfamiliar. Human skin was warm, firm, real. The contact sent a shock through her body, not of fear, but of disbelief. No one had touched her like this here. Not in support, not in public. The laughter died instantly. The chamber fell into a stunned silence. Hundreds of eyes locked onto the pair standing together at the center. The image did not fit the story the galaxy told itself. A human, openly standing with the most ridiculed being in the hall. "What is the meaning of this?" a council member demanded. The human did not release her hand. "I am here as an observer," he said evenly, "but I am also a representative of my people, and we choose to stand here." The alien woman's breath trembled. She tried to speak, to ask him why, but no sound came. Her skin pattern softened, the dark lines fading. "You are out of order," the council member said sharply. "Step back." "No," the human replied. A ripple moved through the hall. Some delegates leaned forward. Others whispered urgently. "You risk your species standing," another voice warned. The human finally looked up at the council. "We understand risk," he said. "We also understand silence, and we will not be silent when someone is treated as less than a person." The alien woman felt something she had not felt in a long time. Not hope exactly, but steadiness. The ground beneath her no longer felt like it might disappear. She found her voice again. "I did not ask for this," she said softly. The human glanced at her and gave a small nod. "I know." The council chamber buzzed with tension. Some saw defiance. Others saw something more dangerous. Example. The council member raised his hand, his expression tight. "This session is adjourned," he declared. "We will reconvene after deliberation." The signal lights dimmed. Guards stepped back, uncertain. Conversations erupted as delegates stood, arguing among themselves. The human released her hand only after the formal end was declared. She felt the absence immediately, but she did not let her posture fall. "Why?" she asked him quietly as the crowd began to move away. "Because someone should have done it sooner," he replied. They walked away from the center together, side by side. Eyes followed them, no longer mocking but questioning. For the first time since she arrived at the station, the alien woman did not feel invisible. And across the galaxy, something small but powerful had shifted, simply because a human chose to reach out instead of turning away. The chamber outside the council hall was noisy and crowded. Beings from many species jostled for position, spoke in harsh tones, and hurried to leave. Yet in that chaos, the alien woman and the human walked side by side, moving slowly, deliberately. Her fingers still tingled from the brief contact, and though she tried to focus on her breathing, she could feel the weight of what had just happened pressing against her chest. "You stood up for me," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. The human glanced at her, his expression calm. "I did what I thought was right," he said simply. "No one deserves to be treated like you were, not in front of everyone." She stared at him, still unsure if she was dreaming. In all the years she had lived, no one had ever done anything like this for her. Her people had been mocked, dismissed, and written off. And yet here was a human standing with her as if it were the most natural thing in the universe. But why? She asked. Why would a human risk everything for someone like me? He shrugged lightly, though his eyes held a quiet intensity. Humans don't always understand the rules of the galaxy. Sometimes we act by instinct, sometimes by empathy. You are being ridiculed, yes, but that does not make you worthless. Not to me, not to anyone who sees you as a person. She thought about that. The council hall, with its towering pillars and cold light, had been full of voices insisting she had no value. Yet this human, one of the newer species in the galaxy, saw her differently. And that difference, small as it was, had shifted the atmosphere in the chamber, leaving delegates uncertain, off balance. "Do you really think it will make a difference?" she asked, still cautious. "I don't know yet," he admitted. "But someone has to start, and sometimes one act can change a lot more than you expect." They exited the station together and entered a quieter corridor where fewer beings walked. The alien woman's skin patterns relaxed, the dark tension lines fading. She had not realized how tightly she had held herself until the moment passed. "Who are you, really?" she asked, curiosity lacing her voice. "I know humans are said to be unpredictable. But you are different from everything I've read." He smiled faintly. "I'm not different in ways that matter. I just choose to stand where it feels right. Sometimes that means standing with someone others have ignored." She studied him, noticing the calm in his posture, the steadiness in his step. Most beings in the galaxy measured strength by power, weaponry, or rank. Humans measured it differently. They measured it by will and choice. And that difference, she realized, was what made him dangerous in the eyes of the council. Dangerous because it could not be controlled, predicted, or ignored. They reached a small observation balcony overlooking the outer docking bays. Ships of countless shapes and sizes came and went, leaving trails of light in the dark expanse. The hum of engines and distant chatter created a soft rhythm. "Your people," the human said after a pause, "they are underestimated, but I can see why. You survive, you rebuild. You endure. That is something many species have forgotten." Her throat tightened. "We survive because we have no choice, because the galaxy does not care, because if we falter, we are gone. And yet you are here," he said, his voice steady. "Standing up, asking to be heard even after everything. That is not weakness, that is strength." She blinked, unsure what to say. Words of praise were rare in her life, and when they came, they were usually hollow. But his words were not hollow, they carried weight, the weight of a belief she had almost forgotten existed. The alien woman finally spoke, her voice firmer. "I will not leave. My people deserve recognition. Even if the council refuses, I will keep trying." The human nodded. "And I will stand with you. That is all I can promise. But sometimes that is enough to change minds." Over the next cycle, they returned to the council hall, this time together. The human's presence altered the room's atmosphere. Delegates whispered among themselves, some with unease, others with curiosity. A few of the more hostile members scowled openly, but they no longer laughed. The alien woman noticed a subtle shift. Those who had mocked her before now regarded her with a mixture of surprise and uncertainty. The council session began again. This time, she spoke with more confidence. "I am here to represent those who have no voice," she said. "I am here to remind you that strength is not measured by conquest alone, but by the ability to endure and protect what matters. My people survived disasters that stronger species did not. We adapted when others failed. We are not weak. We are not insignificant." Her words echoed through the chamber. For the first time, no one interrupted. Some delegates leaned forward, listening. Others exchanged uncertain glances. The alien woman continued, encouraged by the human's steady presence at her side. Your laughter, your insults, your dismissal, she said, her voice gaining power, cannot erase our history, our resilience, or our right to exist. My people may not wield the weapons of the strongest, but we wield endurance, intelligence, and hope. And those are qualities you cannot destroy. A heavy silence followed. The human did not speak. He did not need to. The simple act of standing beside her had already shifted the perception of everyone in the room. Finally, one of the older council members, a species known for strict tradition, spoke. "You speak with courage," he said slowly. "Perhaps we have judged too harshly." Another voice added, "Your people have endured, that is undeniable." The alien woman allowed herself a small, careful smile. She had not expected validation, but hearing these words was a relief. It was not victory yet, but it was a start. The human squeezed her hand gently, a silent acknowledgement of their shared moment. She realized that what he had done was more than support. It had inspired confidence. It had reminded her that she was not alone, even in the face of ridicule. Over the next hours, negotiations took place. The human contributed carefully, offering insights and strategies that highlighted the alien woman's strengths. Together, they presented a case that could not be ignored. Her people deserved protection and recognition. The council could see that denying them now would not only be unjust, but could provoke unforeseen consequences. As the session concluded, the council reached a compromise. The alien woman's people would receive protection and access to council resources for rebuilding, though it was clear some delegates still disapproved. Still, it was a step forward, proof that persistence, courage, and solidarity could shift even the most rigid of systems. The alien woman and the human exited the hall together. The corridors that had once seemed hostile now felt less oppressive. Other delegates passed by, some nodding in respect, others still uncertain. But she no longer cared about judgment. She had been seen. She had been supported. That was enough. They stopped at a small overlook, watching the station's docking bays sparkle with activity. The alien woman turned to the human. I cannot thank you enough," she said. "Not just for today, but for reminding me that someone believes in me." The human shook his head. "You don't need me to believe in you. You already had the strength. I just reminded everyone else." She considered his words. It was true. He had not given her power or taken away her fear. He had merely stood with her, and that act alone had changed the course of her life and the future of her people. For the first time, she felt the galaxy's weight lift slightly from her shoulders. There would be challenges ahead, no doubt. Not everyone would accept her people, and many obstacles would remain. But she was no longer invisible. She had an ally, a reminder that courage and compassion could make a difference. The human offered a small smile, and she returned it, feeling a warmth she had long forgotten. Together, they turned toward the station's exit, stepping into the corridor that led to her people. The future was uncertain, but it was theirs to shape. As they walked, the alien woman realized something important. Strength was not always about dominance, weapons, or fear. Sometimes, strength was about standing up, reaching out, and refusing to let ridicule define who you were. And with humans like him by her side, perhaps there was hope yet for her species, and for the galaxy as a whole. For the first time, she did not feel small. She did not feel ridiculed. She felt recognized. She felt seen. And that recognition, she knew, was the beginning of something greater than either of them could imagine. The galaxy had witnessed an act of courage, not with fire, not with war, but with a simple gesture of solidarity. And that act, small as it seemed, had the power to ripple across worlds, changing perceptions and inspiring others. The alien woman held her head high as she walked with the human, her hand lightly brushing against his. The light from distant stars reflected in her eyes, and for the first time, she dared to imagine a future where her people were no longer mocked, no longer dismissed, and no longer invisible. And beside her, a human walked quietly, steadfast and unwavering. a reminder that sometimes the smallest act of kindness could change everything.